Satyam vyasam tato jayavadi. Nishtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashuki bhakti bhavati naishtiki. Nigamalka pururagaritam param shukamakanamita dravi samitam pibata bhagavatam rasamariyam mahora horasika bhuvi bhavukam. Krishna swadamapagate damagine karonashtad vishamasha parana kodhanoditam. Twamapi adabhishuta vishutam vibhu samyapi adabhidam viduksaram pragyahidaho mahoraditamam sanklesha nirvana musanti nanyatam. Om Ganati Manandasya Ganangana Salakya Chaksurun Meritam Yana Tashmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dharati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Daganatam Vitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishakan Vitam Shah Navam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Praskada Desadarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to Motivational Monday, and this marks a milestone in our ongoing discussions of Gajendra Lila. This is 150th session. That's 3 a week. That would mean 50 weeks. That means we've spent a year on Gajendra Lila. So much nectar. And this is just one amongst dozens and dozens of Leelas in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're not finished by any means. We haven't squeezed all the nectar yet out of this Leela, and I don't think you'll ever were you to do 1,000 or 2,000, I don't think you'd ever get it, because it's always fresh, it's all organic. There are always new insights to be derived, and we ourselves are evolving, maturing, understanding more deeply, more broadly the devotional viewpoint. So nothing is static. You should never get stuck. Always moving forward, moving forward. So we've come to the 10th verse. This is amongst Gajendra's prayers to the Lord. And these are prayers which he's recalling from a previous life. Gajendra, in danger's grip, recalled prayers from a previous life. Mantras resurfacing from the past, transcendental sound awakening, memories profound. Formerly king in Radumna, now in elephant form, yet his prayers echoed, weathering the storm. His mind stripped of arrogance, his history unzipped. This is where we find ourselves. And from the composition of his previous life, Gajendra is reawakened to his original spiritual position of servant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's an interesting shift which has taken place. In the beginning of this pastime, Gajendra was fully immersed and had been fully immersed for the entirety of his elephant's lifespan, which is really thousands of years on the heavenly planets. Hadn't thought about Krishna for who knows how long. When the strike happened, he goes through a number of different psychic changes. The first is the bolt, the thunderbolt of the crocodile hitting his leg and clamping onto his leg. He takes it as a minor irritation, as a mere annoyance. He's used to defeating enemies right, left, and center. He's the king of the elephant. He's 101, 100 KOs, no defeats, no ties, no losses. So first he just takes it as a minor irritation. He tries to shake the crocodile off. That doesn't happen. The crocodile's determined, and the crocodile's huge. And the crocodile's in the water. Crocodile has his natural advantage in the water. There's a natural disadvantage. And no matter how strong the elephant is on the ground, he's disadvantaged in the water. So as this battle goes on, and it's described in the Bhagavatam, goes on for hundreds of years, There's a gradual transitioning in Gajendra's consciousness. He becomes less self-confident, less arrogant. It starts to occur to him. There's the beginnings of the glimmering of realization that he may not be able to fight his way out of this. He may not be able to dominate the crocodile. And so he's trying to think of a way that he can preserve his life. And it's becoming more and more evident to him that it may not be within his power to do so. So he casts about in his mind for moves, maneuvers, strategies, all of which rely upon his own efforts, all of which come to naught. He, instead of achieving parity with the crocodile, extracting himself from the danger, he finds himself more and more enmeshed, more dragged further and further into the deeper part of the water. His strength is weakening. The crocodile's strength is gaining. But finally, when we say this often, when you come to the end of your strength, that's the beginning of Krishna's strength. Gajendra comes to that point where his physical, mental strength, his physical abilities, he's weakened, he's vulnerable, he's literally at death's door. So at this point, Krishna steps in. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back home, back to God. So chant Hare Krishna, Mahamantra's call in this life or the next. It will never fail. Once it's sown, the Bhakti people will grow. Sooner or later, you will go back home, back to God. Even if a devotee falls in the path, Krishna's heart keeps track. At the right time, will take up the slack. He'll carry what you lack. He will get you back home, back to God. So Gajendra's Krishna consciousness from a previous life is kicking in here. And his prayer is, he appeals to the Lord. He goes beyond the boundary of his own capabilities and strength. He stops pulling on his leg, in fact. The first symptom that he's starting to surrender, he was in this tug of war with the crocodile. He would pull his leg, and the crocodile would pull his leg the other way, and he would pull, and it was going back and forth. First symptom of his letting go, giving up, and surrendering to the Lord is that he stops pulling his leg. And in lieu of that, he reaches down into the lake with his trunk. He reaches into the muck. The lotus flower grows within the muck of the lake. He reaches down into the muck, and that's what he's in. He's in the muck. He's in a bad spot. He's in a Halloween. It's a Halloween situation. It's a horrible, scary, frightening situation. In all of that, he's looking for the good. He's looking for the silver lining. And so he reaches into the muck of the lake, and from that muck, he pulls out a beautiful, gorgeous, inspirational lotus flower, and he holds it up and offers this to the Lord with his trunk. Lord, Gajendra stopped pulling his leg, which the croc wanted to devour, and he plucked from the muck of the lake with his trunk a lotus flower, seeking the Lord's power. Krishna, the root of creation, the fruit of the Vedas, the absolute truth, who plays upon your flute, the ever-existing youth. Your lotus feet are adored by Lord Brahma, and Shiva would not leave you, not even for a beat. Your features are unlimited. You're the ingredient of all creatures. Whether they have hands, claws, jaws, or paws, they are all your parts and parcels. Those who are smart, engaging in your devotional service with all their hearts. You guard those who never depart from the hearth of your sheltering breast. Lord, I confess I've messed up, repressed my service, failed the test, but I'm thirsty for your mercy, which is greater than my mistakes. I've heard that all it takes to awaken your protection is a single cry of helpless affection. Lord, in spite of my shame, I'm calling your name. In the middle of the fight, please reclaim me from the might of the crocodile's bite. When I'm released from the teeth of the croc block ignorance in my life, lock me into your devotional service, Lord. Let my original purpose rise to the service. I'm knocking at your door. Please keep me close from now till evermore. When the Lord heard the eloquent prayers of the elephant, he steered Guru to the spot, and he sheared the crocodile's head from his body with a chakra. When the reptile lay dead and Gajendra was shed of his dread, he resumed the thread of his prayers and said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. At this point, Gajendra no longer wants to get saved from the crocodile. His priorities have completely done a 180-degree shift from the beginning of this pastime to where we stand right now. He no longer wants Krishna. He doesn't want to trade on his devotion in order to save this miserable carcass of the elephant's body. His sights are now set on something much higher. He wants to give up the body, and he wants not again to have to take another birth in the material world. He's praying now, not for the Lord to save him from the crocodile. Well, let's say he is praying to the Lord to save him from a crocodile, but the metaphor is he doesn't want to continue in any physical body anymore, and he wants to be saved from the crocodile of time and the crocodile of death. So the first scenario, the crocodile's killing the elephant, we're far beyond that now. The elephant says, I want to be killed. I want the crocodile to kill me on the most elemental level. But what I'm now praying, now I've upped the stakes. Now we're at the next level of knowledge, of devotion. Now I'm asking you on a higher level. I'm not asking you for some temporary material benefit. I'm giving up this body mentally. I'm giving up all attachment to this body, to my wives, to my heavenly residence, to my superiority, to my influence, to my power. I realized this was all just phantasmagoria that kept me trapped in the illusory material nature. Now, Krishna, my prayer is now that you let me die. Let me die. Let time take away this body, but bring me back to your lotus feet. Bring me into the shelter of your loving arms and the protection of your breast. I want to die. What a shift. And what Krishna is going to do now is he's going to give Gajendra liberation. The liberation that he was in such close proximity to in his last life, but he's also going to save him from the crocodile. He's going to fulfill the initial prayer of Gajendra, and then he's going to take Gajendra's initial prayer and he's going to supersize it. He's going to give Gajendra what he wanted, and then he's going to give Gajendra beyond the furthest stretches of his imagination. He's going to meet Gajendra in terms of his physical needs by shearing the crocodile's head from his body, and then he's going to one up. He's going to raise Gajendra by giving him liberation, freedom from having to take birth in this material world. Now, this verse, the first line of this 10th verse in the 3rd chapter of the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, Nama Atma Pradipa. Dipa means light. It's like the light of the sun. Nobody can force the light of the sun. Now we're coming into the winter season throughout North America. There'll be a lot more cloud-covered days. Clouds will be full of rain. Clouds will be full of snow. There'll be whole days where we won't see. Actually, that's not so much true in Utah. Utah is characterized by cloudless, sunny days during the winter. It can be cold, but there's not a lot of gloominess. There's not a lot of overcast here. I've heard from people that live in places like England or Ireland. It's always overcast, or even Seattle. It's always overcast, always raining. You hardly ever see the sun. It's not really the case in Utah. But anyway, there are days, there are stretches, 3 or 4 days, where it may be gloomy, notwithstanding the fact that most days it's sunny, even in the winter in Utah. So the thing is, there's nothing you can do. Let's say you are in Seattle or Ireland or England. You haven't seen the sun for weeks. There isn't a single thing you can do to tear aside the cloud cover and have the warming, refreshing, rejuvenating rays of the sun come. With all of your science and all of your technology, you stand absolutely helpless and incapable of evoking the sun, bringing the sun through the cloud cover. In the same way, Krishna cannot be understood, nor can his mercy be gained by the individual soul through any mental, physical, or intellectual exercises. The only way that you can get the sun to tear through the clouds and bask you in its beneficial rays is to wait in patience, in acceptance, in positivity. It is only when the cloud decides itself that it's going to break through when the sun decides itself that it's going to break through the clouds, will you be standing in a ray of sunshine. Similarly, there's nothing we can do to see Krishna. There's nothing we can do to achieve enlightenment. The Lord is described in this verse as Atma Pradeep. That means he's compared to the sun, that a sun has a certain characteristic. Striking characteristic of the sun is that it can illuminate everyone, but the sun cannot be illuminated by anyone. That means if you're serious about understanding the Supreme Personality of God, you have to receive enlightenment from him. There's nothing you can do to force him to reveal himself before you. You cannot understand the Supreme Personality of God. It was beyond the darkness of earth, air, fire, water, mind, intelligence, and false ego, even beyond the ability of his parts and parcels of spirit souls to understand him. There's nothing within your mental, intellectual, or physical powers by which the Lord is obliged to reveal himself to you. So this whole purport and this verse stems from the idea that Krishna can only be understood. Because you can't understand him physically, mentally, intellectually, doesn't mean you can't understand him. Don't give up, throw in the towel, and get defeated. None of that means that you can't understand him. It just means that you have to understand him through his grace. I used to talk to Christians, born again Christians. I don't talk to them anymore, at least not about theology. But they used to quote, whenever you talk about seeing God, they would quote a verse in the Bible, "No man has seen God." They would use that verse to say that you can't see God. And I have no quarrel with that. You cannot see God. There's nothing you can do to force God to appear before you. But the Christians would take that verse to mean that God can't appear before you. All right? It's okay to put limits on us. That's okay. We're limited conditioned souls. But to use this phrase, "no man has seen God," to put forward the theory that no man can see God under any circumstances is misleading, and if I may say so, even a little demoniac. Bhakti Siddhanta, the guru of our guru, he said, don't act in such a way that you can see God. That's not possible. But act in such a humble, serving, loving mood that God wants to reveal himself to you. He wants to reveal himself to you. Putting that in another way, Bhakti Siddhanta said, there's no way the infinitesimal, we're a tiny soul, 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair. We are like a particle of sunshine. God is like the sun globe. Quality is the same. They're both possessive light and heat. But there's a vast difference in the power of a particle of sunshine and the sun globe itself. We are forever separated by God in terms of our tiny triviality. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, the infinitesimal can never comprehend the infinite. We just don't have the equipment. We don't have the mentality. We don't have the physicality. We don't have the intellect to understand the infinite. You can't put an elephant on a little teacup saucer. You can't put a big 2-ton elephant on a little saucer. So our intellect is not sufficient to understand God. The infinitesimal cannot, on its own, understand the infinite. However, the infinite is such that he can reveal himself to the infinitesimal. To say that no man has seen God means that no man can see God is a big insult to God himself. It's a slap in the face to God. It's saying God cannot reveal himself to his faithful servant, which is an untruth, which is misleading and false. So even though we shouldn't put our hopes in ourselves, we shouldn't lose hope, because Krishna is that personality who can do the impossible. So in devotional service, we chant, we serve the deities, we make flower gardens, we organize festivals, and we have no hope that any of those activities will force Krishna to appear before us. But our hope lies in the fact that if our hearts are pure and if we're innocent, and our foremost priority is to serve the Lord and to please the Lord, please Radharani, who then mentions us to Krishna, there is every hope against hope of eventually attracting the favor and the mercy of the Lord. In this connection, the sun beats down on the ocean. The ocean water is salty. Salty ocean water cannot be used by human society. No doubt you've read a story somewhere where a man adrift, or some men adrift on a boat or a life raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and they can't drink a drop of it. If they drink the salt water, they'll get deathly sick. What is it? The poet said, water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink. The salt water has no application to us. We can only drink water from which the salt has been extracted. And if we try to make a power plant or a treatment plant to extract salt from water, it can be done, but it's tremendously expensive. It's not cost effective. There's been no cost effective way of, through man-made methods, extracting fresh water from salt water. It can be done, but it's not cost effective. But God has a cost-effective method that's been going on since time immemorial. Our whole human civilization, the fact that we can get up every day and drink water. It's the first thing I do. Drink water. You're 90% water. So, and during sleep, we breathe out. A lot of water comes out from our lungs, and when we sleep, we also pass water. So it's very important. First thing you do when you get up is have a nice big glass of water. That will restore the balance within your body, and it will give you, sometimes when we get up, we feel a little depressed, we feel a little heaviness, we feel a little headache, we feel a little achy. And this is because of the dehydration that's taken place during sleep. And so the first thing you need to do to throw off the blues, the early morning blues, is to drink a big cup of water. I'd say 22 ounces of water at the minimum, room temperature. But we need that fresh water in order to survive. And we've had it throughout the entirety of human history by God's arrangement. And that arrangement is that the powerful sun, which is billions of times more powerful than any one of us, billions of times more powerful than the aggregate power, take all the light and energy and BTUs which are shed from each and every one of the souls who inhabit the 8,400,000 species of life in this material universe, and their cumulative power still wouldn't be a billionth part of a trillionth part of the power of the sun. So that sun, that unlimitedly powerful sun, who is itself an expansion of the unlimitedly powerful Lord Narayan, Surya Narayan, says God, the sun, is an incarnation of Narayan, and therefore a fount of unlimited power. That sun beats down on the clouds, and that tremendous heat from an inexhaustible source causes evaporation. From the salt water, out of the salt water, the fresh water is extracted and evaporated, and it rises. Even though water is more dense than air, still almost in defiance of the law of gravity, density, because of the extraordinary power and supernatural abilities of the sun god. The water rises improbably. The water rises, and it has none of that salt in it. It rises, and the water particles, some or other, gather together in the form of beautiful cumuli, clouds, white clouds in the summer, monsoon, bluish black clouds in the winter. That those clouds are pushed by the wind over land, and the atmospheric conditions are such that when they find themselves over mountaintops, that fresh water is released on the top of mountains. If it's summer, the temperatures are above freezing, that fresh water comes down in the form of rains, and then the rainwater goes through canyons, crevices, becomes rivers and creeks and streams, and flows. Sometimes the Ganges, I believe, flows over 1,500 miles, the Mississippi, and it deposits itself back in the ocean, where it again becomes mixed with salt. But in the meantime, we can pump off, we can funnel off, we can catch the rainwater, we can funnel off the rain from lakes and rivers and creeks and streams, and use it to survive. None of that would be possible were it not for the unlimited, powerful sun suspended up there in the sky. So the sequence is that the sun beats on the ocean, it evaporates the water, and it produces a cloud. And that cloud eventually deposits its fresh water on the earth. If it deposits it in times of the year when the temperature is above freezing, it comes down as rain. It remains as rain as it courses across the surface of the earth. If the temperatures are above freezing in that stratosphere, then what it starts out as rain, but then it becomes frozen and it comes as snow. And then the snowpack accumulates throughout the winter on the mountain peaks. And then throughout the spring and the summer, when the temperatures rise, that snow gradually melts, and it provides throughout the drought periods, throughout the periods in which there's very little rain and there are high temperatures, it provides a steady release of salt-free water for human society to use. What a tremendously ingenious arrangement. How it's enacted on a universal cosmic scale. We're so much dependent upon the mercy of the Lord. What to speak of all the varieties of foodstuffs which come from the earth? None of the things we eat would grow were they not irrigated. Were we not able to water our crops, we would have nothing to eat. And what to speak of our edibles, the solid foods from which we get our calories and our nourishment. We can fast, we can go without food for up to 90 days. I've even heard that people fasted for 90 days. We can't go without water for more than 3 days. Water is so essential, not only for producing the solid food that we masticate, but for directly consuming it as water. As I mentioned, our bodies are 90% water. None of that's possible through our own man-made arrangements. Now, interestingly enough, once the sun has produced the clouds, paradoxically, the clouds then cover the sun. The clouds, which are produced by the sun, end up covering the sun, especially in the winter season. But the fact that the clouds are casting gloominess and shadow, plunging the world in sort of a gray, depressing, pallor, doesn't mean that the sun has disappeared. It's just covered by the clouds. When the clouds put themselves between us and the sun, they prevent our weak eyes from seeing the sun. And in that case, when we're cast in the gloominess of the clouds, there's nothing we can do to force the sun to reveal himself. There's nothing we can do other than waiting, being patient, and realizing that the sun is there, even though we can't see it directly. Otherwise, how can I, even on a gloomy day, I can look, I can see my hands, I can see my face in the mirror, I can see trees. The eyes would not be able to act were it not for the sun. Even we can't see with these eyes the direct sun. It is through the light which is produced from the sun filtering through the clouds that we can see anything. But it may happen in places, again, like Seattle, like Ireland and England. Sorry for picking on those three places. But it may come about that for so long you haven't seen the sun. It's been weeks and months, maybe even years since you've seen the sun. What's going to happen? It's possible that you start to doubt the existence of the sun itself. Even though we know that sunlight wouldn't exist without a source of the sun, if you haven't seen the sun itself, the source of the sunlight, for a sustained, prolonged period of time, you might eventually come to the erroneous conclusion that there is no sun. The sunlight just appears in and of itself. So similarly, this material world is Maya. This material world consists of the illusory energy of Krishna. It comes from Krishna, it rests on Krishna, it's provided by Krishna, it couldn't exist without Krishna. And yet, for those who are not Krishna conscious, whose faith is not stable and fixed in the knowledge of the Lord, who is like the sun, that illusory energy of the Lord, Maya, can shadow the living being, can cover the living being, can prevent the living being from seeing God in his direct original form for so long that the living being can come to the point of actually giving up on the Supreme Lord and denying his existence. It's by the power of the sun that the clouds work. The clouds have been created by the power of God. Similarly, this whole illusory material world, which is called Maya, has been created by none other than God, and yet that creation of God can cover the living being, can prohibit him seeing the presence of God, can cause him to lose sight of his own spirituality. In other words, as soon as you lose sight of God, who's represented by the sun, then you lose sight of yourself. If you can't see the sun, metaphorically speaking, it's very difficult to see yourself. So if you can't appreciate God as a supreme, unlimitedly powerful, benevolent, spiritual source of it all, then your own power of seeing down here on this day-to-day level suffers as well. You fail to realize that you are an eternal spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Lord. You start to doubt your own ability to see. You cannot appreciate your own power to see. You begin to doubt God. And along with that, coincidentally with doubting God, you also live your life unaware of ourselves existing as spirit souls, part and parcel of God, beyond this material body. So when you don't see God, then you also cease to see yourself. Just like if you're in a dark room, the sun may be shining brilliantly outside, but you've closed yourself in a little dark room and you've shut all the shutters and you've filled in all the cracks. The sun is shining brilliantly all around your little cell there, your little cabin, but you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And so your own power of seeing fails when you are plunged into darkness. And many of us, although God is fully and readily and audibly and evidentially available at every step, the whole world is full of miracles, full of wonders. And God-conscious people don't take a step without being in awe of the miracles of God. Every time you drink water, Rasha Homasukantya, the water reminds you of Krishna. Every time you take food, the food reminds you of Krishna. Every time you speak, you're reminded of the fact that it's a supernatural power which God has bestowed upon man to be able to speak and communicate and form words and concept and share all of that. As soon as you turn your back on God, who is like the sun, sun is there, sun is shining, sun is obvious. Existence of the sun is never really in doubt from any objective point of view. But what happens is when you turn your back on the sun, you cast your own self in shadow. And thus cast into shadow, into illusion, you can no longer see the sun shining behind you and your own power to see yourself apart from this dark temporary material body is also removed. So by any of our hard work, by mental, physical, or intellectual power, we cannot force God to reveal himself to us. And especially if we're envious of God, blind unbelief is sure to err and scan his work in vain. God is his own interpreter and take it plain. If one has taken up an envious position with regards to God, that means that one stubbornly turns one's back on the sun and casts oneself into shadow. Especially in that circumstance, there's no way that one can understand the soul or one can understand God. But even if you're inclined to, even if you're disposed to bless your life with knowledge and realization and light and love, still there's nothing you as an infinitesimal living soul can do to force God to come before you. You might, it's an overcast winter day. The whole horizon is full of gray clouds. Everything's gloomy. So you might foolishly try to build up your eyes, try to improve the strength of your eyes. You might take, what is it, lutein? You might take these little pills that are supposed to keep your eyes healthy. You might roll your eyes. You might do roll exercise. You might blink your eyes, try opening and closing your eyes. You might try and improve your distance seeing. You might improve them, or you might even get glasses, or you might get a microscope or a telescope. You might try looking at things up close. There are all kinds of eye exercises out there that I'm sure that you can do, but none of them, no matter how you build up your eyes or how you strengthen your eyes, none of that even comes close to forcing the sun to tear away the clouds. So even in bhakti, even in the practices of devotional service, even when we chant Hare Krishna, even when we worship the deities, even when we make flower gardens, even when we organize festivals, when we do kirtan, still none of that ensures, none of that forces God to reveal himself or to bless us with transcendental knowledge. None of that, no matter, just like we said, no matter how many eye exercises you do, none of that even comes close to tearing the clouds. So even the practices of bhakti, none of those in and of themselves force Krishna to reveal himself. His revealing himself before us depends on one thing and one thing only, his own sweet will. To the extent that you try to put him in a box, to the extent that you put him in an algorithm, he remains unavailable. He remains unapproachable. If your attitude is, Krishna, I am doing this, you have to do this. Or I'm doing this, and therefore, Krishna, you have to do that, your efforts will be unsuccessful. You can chant Hare Krishna for millions of years. You'll never come close to Krishna because Krishna is a Vigna Sarat. You have to recognize from the outset that Krishna is completely free and independent to do what he wants, when he wants it, and how he wants it. There's no constraints. There's no way in heaven or hell that we can condition or predicate or move Krishna in a certain direction to achieve the goal that we want to achieve. Everything's going to happen by Krishna's arrangement in Krishna's time, by Krishna's arrangement. So when we perform bhakti, the key most ingredient is to keep our heart pure and innocent and free from ulterior motives, to kick out the tendency to manipulate, to exploit, to control, to think of others in terms of friends, enemies, neutral parties, to think of some circumstances as favorable and some circumstances as unfavorable. Pure devotees are characterized by an even-mindedness in all circumstances, in honor and dishonor, in comfort and inconvenience, in happiness and distress, in hot and cold. They are equipoised, that God is in control, God is in the throne, and especially in times of challenge, in times of difficulty, Krishna is always in control. He's always got my best interests in mind. So if I pass the tests, go through sunny days, go through gloomy days, go through stormy days, go through cloudy days, always being aware first and foremost that Krishna is in control, keeping ourselves in the palm of his hands, trusting him, having faith in him, loving him, and knowing that no matter what the external situation is, no matter who or what comes against us, he's always working things for our own best interest. And when we have that purity and innocence of heart, Krishna cannot resist getting more and more involved in your life, revealing himself more and more and more to his fully surrendered devotees. That's our 150th segment on the pastimes of Ganesh. As we talked about in the beginning, to come to this point, we would have been talking 3 times a week, 52 weeks for 1 year. And we didn't make every session. Sometimes we were traveling. So it's been a year and a half or a year and a quarter since we started this series. And I would predict that it may be another 6 months before we finish. This has been the 150th segment of Gajendra Lila. And I think Vallabha Chandra, formerly known as Brent, has been here for all of them. Lilavati's been here recently. Natasha's been in and out for the whole series. Tasha was with us for the previous series also, and Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and others. Shali, nice. I read your poem on Diwali. That was a very nice, well-written poem. Kelly, thank you very much for your kind words from north to south, from Idaho down to Utah. And here's an offering by and Pragna, whose birthday it was, I think, just yesterday or a couple days ago. Happy birthday, Pragna. Here's what Brent has written. Krishna consciousness from a previous life can save you from your current strife. You may be stuck in mud or be washed away in a flood, but you can cross the ocean if you remember your past devotion. In illusory nature, you may drown, but Bhakti can turn it all around. You can't find the way out on your own, but Krishna can make the path known. I usually read these twice because there's a lot there. Krishna consciousness from a previous life can save you from your current strife. You may be stuck in mud or be washed away in a flood, but you can cross the ocean if you remember your past devotion. In illusory nature, you may drown, but Bhakti can turn it around. You can't find the way out on your own, but Krishna can make the path known. Thank you very much. Vallabha Chandra did 23 books at his book table at our Diwali celebrations last Saturday night in Salt Lake City. We had a huge crowd, probably 1,000 people all told, or more, 1,200. The auditorium holds 350, 400, and it was packed. And the temple room holds 250, 300, and it was packed. So that means at any given time, there were between 600 and 700 people there. And then coming and going from 6 until 9:30, a lot of other people as well. It was wonderful dances by Sudha Kargi's daughter and their dance troupe, by Sonali Lumbra and her sister, also by a new arrival in Salt Lake City who does Kuchipudi dance. Her name was Parimala Lakshmi Parimala. And then our four girls now, they were joined by another newcomer to Salt Lake City, Mansi. Mansi danced with Priya Mahajan, Sarabi, as well as Shwati. They also presented a dance program, and the highlight of the evening was Krishna Prasaya's drama. The kids all put on a wonderful drama of Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill. They had beautiful costumes. They delivered their lines expertly. It was very much loved and appreciated by the audience. We had a great fireworks display. After that, everybody did the Garba. If you go to our Facebook page, Caru, Utah, I think you're on the page right now. You wouldn't be hearing me right now. You can go back to our previous posts and see all the different videos and all of the Garba. And also Kapila organized from members and from fellow employees at Goldman Sachs food distribution throughout the evening from our Krishna Govinda's food cart. Agni did organize chanting with all the kirtanias in the temple room while the cultural program was going on in the auditorium. Both places, as I said, were packed. So we're still kind of floating in ecstasy in the aftermath of this beautiful Diwali New Year celebration last Saturday night. We have another gathering this Thursday at the mansion of the governor. I think it'll be like the 25th year we've gathered to celebrate Diwali. The priest from the Ganesh temple does a little Lakshmi Puja, and I usually give a translation. In most cases, I give a talk also to open things up, but Dinesh called me and said some other politicians are butting in. John Curtis, Utah senator, is going to be there. The Indian ambassador of the United States is going to be there. So Ganesh, in his self-effacing way, chuckles and he says, true, when we've got three politicians talking, including Governor Cox, we may not have time for you to do your normal opening comments. So in a very tactful, sweet, his characteristic way, Dinesh informed me that I won't be giving any more introductory talks beyond just translating the Sri Sukta, which is fine. I owe Dinesh deeply. Whatever he requires, I accomplish. And then we're headed out, Vaibhavi and I are headed out Friday to Houston. They're having a Rath Yatra organized by Prafulananda this Saturday. And he's also having a color throw in the middle of the Rath Yatra. I'm going to be the emceer and do some Krishna conscious rap songs. So we're excited for the weekend. And in the meantime, between now and then, we'll have Transcendental Tuesday and Wisdom Wednesday. Looking forward to getting back together with you on those two additional occasions during the span of this week. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.